When our core wounds meet the physical world, it offers us the opportunity to heal from the trauma and the emotional wear and tear we have endured in this lifetime. How many core wounds are there to heal? In this podcast series, we will talk about them all, healing the emotional core wounding, including the mother wound, the primal wound, so we can walk in our medicine to be the healers that we all are. Join podcast host, confidence coach Susan Axelrod with her very special guest, Kornelia Stephanie. This podcast is one for the ages, living beyond the core wounds.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of this important podcast series. I honestly am so delighted that you are joining us, that you found us. I simply do not know what is more important than getting confident and comfortable and secure in your own body, in your own being, in your terms. That's really what it means to live beyond core wounds, is living on your terms. In our last episode, we talked about the core wound of betrayal, feeling betrayed. It's not how most people want to live. They want to live in trust, being able to trust yourselves, being able to trust each other, from betrayal to trust. In today's episode, we're going to be speaking about the core wound of abandonment, feeling abandoned. And we're going to get to the opposite, which is safety and security, feeling safe and secure. I wanted to just read a quick little quote from this book that we've been using, Kornelia Stephanie's book, Peace, the Flip Side to Anger. And here it is. Doing some inner housekeeping is part of our self-love journey. We need to get conscious and reach down to the roots and be brutally honest about what is crying out to be loved free. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me on that language? To be loved free. You know, in my own journey, the word self-love used to be trigger words for me. I'm like, block. No, I don't get it. I'm not in it. It's not me. Of course, everyone who knows me now knows that self-love is the basis of confidence as I teach it. So honestly, friends, once again, I'm delighted to welcome my dear friend Kornelia Stephanie to this conversation. Kornelia, today we're talking about abandonment.
Yeah, this is a core wound that a lot of us had in this lifetime, that we came to feel, to heal, that we came to release, that we came to let go. A lot of us experienced this core wound somewhere between when we were between 0 and 7 years old, when we were little children, where we've been so open and vulnerable during that age and during those times, that someone played that role and abandoned us. And we've been carrying that wound for a long time. And so as we're moving into our new earth, in the new earth, it's vital that you are safe. It's vital that you feel safe. It's vital that you hold and know that energy. Because I ask you, Susan, why is it that today on social media, a post is made that is said, at all times and in all circumstances, I am safe, I am loved, I am whole, I am free to be myself, I am free to love, I am free to be me, all is well. Why is it that that statement is made? Because there is the opposite of people feeling the opposite. Because otherwise, that statement wouldn't be made, because people would be feeling safe. So I ask you, Susan, Do you feel safe?
I have learned to feel safe in my new skin, Cornelia. My new skin, I have been growing on my own personal journey. I call it to the light, personal to, my enlightenment journey for more than 20 years, really. I'm kind of old. So I've been on this journey a long time. And so working with you, for these several years that we've been together and learning about this, working through your book and doing my own inner work, to love myself free, I can say that I feel safe, even though sometimes that has been challenged. But ultimately, in my work as a confidence coach, I wouldn't be authentic if I didn't do my own work. And so that confidence comes from safety and security and knowing that it's in my control.
Exactly. And so when you listen to the other podcasts where we were talking about betrayal or we were talking about the mother wound, abandonment is another one of those core wounds that a lot of us in this lifetime were born into. And so then when we look at the inner child, the you that feels abandoned by life or that feels that abandonment, like I feel abandoned, I feel left, I feel not safe, I feel, whatever it is that is coming up for you in that experience, it's coming up so that you can release that experience, you can release that emotional core wound, that you can release it. And what is it that you really want? What this is what I found for me when I was clearing abandonment. I was again in my journal and I was again asking myself, my inner self, what do you want? What do you need? What is it that you need? And Susan, I'm very convicted in asking my inner self what she needs and then being able to give it to myself because I want to make sure that she gets her needs met. Because as a child, I didn't get my emotional needs met. I had to put my own emotional needs aside to be there for my mother and for my family as as a young girl. And so healing the abandonment wound, when I was feeling the abandonment, it was, what is it that I really want to feel? And the bottom line of what I really wanted to feel, Susan, I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel secure. That's what I wanted to feel in my body, in my home, where I am. I wanted to feel that. And, so once you acknowledge that you want to feel this, that you want to give this to yourself, you can look and see, have you abandoned yourself somewhere? Have you abandoned yourself? Like maybe you've said that you wanted to do something for yourself, but you've abandoned, you want to do certain things, you want to attain a goal or something, and you've abandoned yourself, and that you can never really fully trust that you won't give up on yourself, that you will not, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Mhm. That's
Someone
okay.
yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. I just want to say that I want to repeat what you just said, because this is my experience with you, Cornelia. When you said that you are, really fierce about asking my inner self what she needs
Yeah,
and then making sure she gets her needs met. So we're talking about the inner housekeeping that I referenced. We're talking about being brutally honest that I referenced. We're talking about the self-love journey that I referenced, and and being loved free to make sure your little inner self, gets what it is that she needs. This topic of abandonment, Cornelia, looks many ways. There's the biggest, the worst, the you're literally left, right? You're left,
Yeah,
you're
there's
abandoned. That's the
Mhm.
obvious. But
Mhm.
more likely, with more people, there are these micro wounds that happen in, like you say, the 0 to 7 years, where abandonment could come from something that might not appear. You could be yelled at by someone, even if they don't have malicious intention. You could be left somewhere by mistake. You forgot at the store till they come running back in. Those little micro wounds that happen along with the big abandonment wounds. And I want to make very clear that these small things matter too. In our discussion with the core wounding, they're not always the big obvious things that happen. And you and we talk a lot about abandonment, and that's why I wanted to bring out this point. This isn't like the big thing that somebody doesn't relate to, where they were never left behind, completely.
Right.
Although I do have our dear friend Kelly Walk Hines, who wrote Hope in the Darkness, grew up in domestic violence, and she was literally left behind.
Right.
So that also happens, but it's not just that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, and we're not just talking about it, from what I'm sharing and from what you're saying, because it can play out in many ways. But it happened, abandonment somewhere got activated in our experience when we were vulnerable and when we were young children. Somewhere that played out, and that was the storyline that got buried in the subconscious, right? It got buried that this is how life is. This is what's going to happen, right? Until we heal that part, until we heal those core wounds through our experience, because that's, again, through the emotional experiences that we have in our relationships, right? And because when I healed this emotional core wound, it was a relationship that I had with a friend. And all of a sudden, I'm having a wonderful relationship with uh, a friend, a woman, and nothing sexual or nothing like that. We were just good friends, and we would visit, and we would, we were on this journey together. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one day, she just dropped off, completely just dropped out of my life. And this was someone that I was, enjoying being around. I enjoyed my friend. I enjoyed being around her. And I felt abandoned by her, right? Like, what happened? What happened to you? We were so close. We were talking every day. And then all of a sudden she just dropped out. Later on, I found out later on what happened, but that was like 6 months or a year later. But I was still, in the present moment, I was still feeling abandoned by my friend.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the thing is that you hadn't, as you've all through this podcast series, you've been helping us understand that in that moment you're choosing the experience that you want to have. You could feel abandoned or not feel abandoned, but it triggered this old thing of abandonment in you. And
Well,
that
and
was
that was
then
all
your
part of
experience.
clearing the emotional core wounds. So
Right.
this was all part of the process. This happened because you asked in the early on, how did I get into this work? And
Right.
this was part of my work, living beyond the core wounds and clearing and processing the emotional core wounding of our past. And abandonment was part of my past.
Yeah.
And so when it came up, because it's always going to come up, not just for me, but for anyone through their experience, it's going to come up through their experience, where you're going to most likely be abandoned by someone. Something is going to abandon you, so that you can see it, so that you can feel it, so that you can release it, so that you can clear it and embody the opposite, which is, I am safe. So that even if my friend, like, even let's just say you and I are friends, Susan, right? And I've already cleared and healed the abandonment core wound out of my life. It's not even something that's part of my new human blueprint, my new human footprint. It doesn't even exist in here, because I don't have that here. So even if you were to drop out of my life, and you were to just, drop out and I wouldn't know or whatever, abandonment is not something I would feel.
Right. You
That's
might feel sad. You might feel curious, but that's my point, is that that would have been healed. And then also, because you're in consciousness, you probably would be like, ooh, some shit's going down with Susan, because you would know that it's not abandonment.
right. And the other thing that I know is that I am safe. I am
Yeah.
secure.
Yeah.
So that's already, and I'm vibrating and living in that. I know that no matter who comes and who goes in my life, that I am safe, because that is the template. That is the opposite. We're talking about living beyond the core wounds. Once we heal and release the core wounds, which is why it's so important to consciously do this work. I did this work with myself because that was the body of work I wanted to learn about. My soul's growth, my soul's learning. And emotional processing was one of the ways, the healing modality, the journaling that I did with my own healing journey. So abandonment was a core wound, and I wanted to get to the root of it and heal that, and then embody the opposite, because we are living on a planet of duality, and there's dual opposites that exist here. And so it was very easy for me to ask myself during the state of abandonment, how do you want to feel? I want to feel safe in this relationship with you. And so when we look at, I want to feel safe in this relationship with you, I could project that out and say to you, Susan, I want to feel safe in my relationship with you. Or I could take it into my journal and I could say, Kornelia, I want to feel safe in this relationship with you. I'm not going to abandon you.
Oh, I mean, this is another one of those times I've said it frequently in our discussions in our podcast episodes. I want to encourage our viewers and listeners to play this back. Like I said, I have my journal here. I'm still taking notes from our conversation. Take a piece of paper, listen to the conversation we're having, listen to the words that are being used. For example, you just said to us, so I would ask myself, well, how do I want to feel? And that was a self-permission that, has to be learned, Kornelia. That self-permission is taken away when we're young children. But we get to claim it back in creating what? The new human blueprint, which is what? It's what I create. I create the blueprint. I ask myself, am I safe? Am I secure? How do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? Honestly, Kornelia, I don't know if we've really talked about that much between us, but anybody who's heard me speak, and it's in my books, was like, that was the beginning of that was my question for myself many years ago, 20 or more years ago. How do I want to feel? Because the way I feel now, it's not good. And so how do I want to feel? So the human blueprint that I create is courageously, we talked about courage in our last episode, asking yourself these questions, doing the inner housekeeping, doing the inner work, sometimes journaling. And then you said, you take care of yourself. I so love this. I've so loved this. I said it before, asking my inner self what she needs, and then making sure she gets her needs met. I love this. This idea of feeling abandoned, feeling bereft from abandonment. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to be able to identify, oh, this is abandonment. This feeling is feeling abandoned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think inside the book, of course, inside the book, and then on my website, there's an emotional processing technique. And again, the question always is, what is this about for me? what is this about for me? What is this about? And then, this person left me, or this person is not talking to me, or whatever it is that brought that up. So how do I feel? I feel abandoned by this person. I just want to say that once you heal that emotional core wound and release that, and really consciously choose your new blueprint of how you want to feel in your house, on this planet, in your body. I am safe. I am loved. I am whole. I know 1000% that I will never abandon myself. I know that.
Mm.
So I know 1000% that that I am safe, no matter what is happening outside in the world. There could be anything going on, but it doesn't matter, because I feel safe within. And we always, when we have this inner, trauma that we're releasing, this core wound, it's coming up so that we can come back to our natural state. And that is what I'm saying. I am safe. I am whole. I am loved. That is our natural state. But through our conditioning and our childhood and our parents' childhood and our ancestral lineage, that was not the talk of the town.
Yeah, and you know what came up for me just now when you've repeated, I am safe, I am whole, I am loved, and then you said that's our natural state. What really that is the natural state in the womb for most people. In the womb, there is this feeling, this sensibility of I am safe, I am whole, I am loved. That is the natural state of being, and then that really kind of gets taken away, stolen along the way, to the
And
point that
it happens then between the ages of the time that you're born until you're 7 years old, when you're so open and vulnerable to this is how life is and what's happening in the family dynamics in your household. So that's where you can really look at where that all took place. I mean, abandonment in my family, my mother was adopted. So I chose my mother as my mother, because this is my belief that I chose I chose my parents, but my mother was adopted. So can you imagine? My mother would be able to also look at, I felt abandoned by my birth mother.
yeah,
Not only that,
definitely.
but my mother never knew who her real father was. I feel abandoned by my birth father, right? And so then you would also ask, do you have a close relationship with your divine, with your father, with your source, with your divine, with God, with source, with the greater power outside of yourself? Do you have a good relationship there? And so then, no, I feel abandonment. I feel abandoned by God. I feel abandoned by source. So that's where we can track it all the way through and see where it all is. And then really what it wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be felt. It wants to be released. And then what is the new thing you want to feel now? How would you like to give birth to? How would you like to feel now? Well, I would like to feel safe. This is really what I want. So if I was giving birth to myself, this is the birth that I would have you have, is that you feel safe, that you feel secure, that you feel loved, that you feel honored. I'm responsible for my own healing. I'm responsible for my own ascension. I'm responsible for the environments that I create that are in my control, in my immediate environment, in my home, in my body. I'm responsible for that. And so that's why living beyond the core wounds was a labor of love, to release and heal all of that, and to come back into the natural state in my peaceful environment where I want to live.
I was frantically writing down while you're saying, but I know I can play this back. I've already listened to all of our episodes at least one time. I'm responsible for my own healing. I'm responsible for my own ascending. I'm responsible for the environments I create. I love this idea of, that I'm taking responsibility. That's the human blueprint that Kornelia just referenced. The human blueprint, the new human blueprint, is the one I create. So, Kornelia, I do this quite a bit. It's mind play, mind games, whatever it is. But I do this work with people now, as you know, in my coaching, in my confidence coaching, to help them feel that sense of self, the sense of confidence, which does take self love. And therefore, I have to do the work myself. And it's so good to learn the truth, which is it's in your control. And the idea of abandonment, of all these different ways that we've discussed today, of that feeling abandoned, but coming into or from abandonment to what? Safe and secure. I feel safe. I'm in safety. I create safety and security for myself. I love how much you help us bring it into our control.
And it's again, we're here in the new earth. We're co-creating our new earth together. We're responsible for, it's our responsibility to not make the same mistakes that have happened in the past. It's our responsibility. So working on yourself, loving yourself, healing the core wounds of your past, healing the core wounds, whatever they are. Like I said in the beginning, in the introduction, that not everybody has all the core wounds. Not everyone does. I, as an ascended master being in this incarnation, I came in to heal and clear all of these for myself. Thus, anyone that wants to also work on this for themselves, they can, because it exists. So this is all part of my own healing that I've done, and being emotionally neutral so that I can return back to my original state of who I really am. That has been the work, and it hasn't been easy. It has been painful. It has been hard. It has been daunting. It has been excruciating, because we as humans don't like to feel pain.
But when you do go through it, all those things are true, which I also know. But Cornelia, on the other side, the side of safety and security, the side of trusting in yourself, the side of courage, the other side is so good. And guess what? It's easier. It's an easier way of being when you move through abandonment to safety. Or last episode, we talked about moving through betrayal to trust. On the other side, it's so good, Cornelia, isn't it?
It is. And that's why, we're talking about you living beyond the core wounds. You're in the new earth now. And in this new earth, this is how we live here. We live here, I've said long time ago, in many workshops that I was teaching, spiritual retreats and different things, I said, your children will never know what betrayal is. They will look at you and they will say, what does betrayal mean? What is that all about? Because of the work that you're doing on yourself, and because the healing that you're doing on yourself.
Oh my gosh, I have chills from that. That's like ridiculous. That's so.
Now, your children will never know, because you are vibrating in the frequency of trust.
Yes, this is so good. We're going to continue this conversation in another episode, Cornelia. But in the meantime, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you and say, I need help with the issue of abandonment, how would they get in touch with you?
360-941-5783. You can text me or call me. and we'll jump on a call, and we can talk about which of the core wounds you want to get to first. And I will show you how to do it so that you can release them, create your new footprint, your new blueprint, your new carbon print of who you are today, and release all of that from the past so that you can be free of that and live your life in peace and harmony.
Also, friends, go to your phone, go to your Play Store, download the KS Media app, click on directories, and Kornelia and I are both there under influencers, and we both have so much more fun and amazing, inspired, motivating, and impactful material to help you move into this new way of being. And so thank you for joining us. And Kornelia, thank you. And we'll see you next time for part 2 on this very, very important discussion about moving from abandonment to safety. Take care. Bye-bye.